Alright guys, Tszyu has announced his return to the ring following that disappointing loss to Fundora in their rematch. This is going to be on a stacked card at the ICC Sydney. It's going to be Wednesday, December 17th. We're going to run through the card. We're going to talk about the fights, primarily talk about Tszyu and the co-main Sam Goodman. But we'll start at the bottom of the bill. Charlie Kazzy will be taking on Blair Garrity. That's a very good fight. Two very promising young prospects in Australia. Charlie Kazzy, 20 years old, 9 wins. Blair Garrity, 19 years old, 4 wins. It'll be a good fight between those two. Like I said, they're both building their careers. You'd probably give the early favourite to Charlie Kazzy based on the experience that he's got at professional level. I haven't seen too much of Blair Garrity compared to Charlie Kazzy, but I'm sure it'll be a very, very good fight. Ahmed Redder, he's coming off his best win of his career, in my opinion. He was in a very tough fight in August, against Bruno Tarimo. He's taking on Joe Marpalawan, 34-year-old, 7 wins, 5 knockouts, 1 loss, 2 draws. I don't know much about him, but Ahmed Redder should smoke this guy off the small things that I have seen of him. Callum Peters makes his return to the ring. He's a very exciting fighter, 4 wins, 4 knockouts, 0 losses, but I still don't think he's been challenged as highly as he could be yet. 22 years of age, middleweighter, against Cody Beacon, who's undefeated in 8 fights. Callum Peters, he last fought June or July. It's got to be in and around then. Then he went on to the Nationals in Birmingham, in England, earlier this year. Unfortunately, got knocked out the first round. This is a guy that has got over 100 amateur fights and did quite well in the Olympics. Didn't achieve what he wanted to achieve, but in terms of him as a prospect, he's probably in and around Australia's best boxing prospect. He is a very, very, very good fighter, and he's been fighting for a very, very long time, and I still think he's building. I still think there's a lot to work on. What I saw from him at that national tournament was a guy that has had 4 professional fights and tried to fight an amateur bout like a professional would, instead of an amateur fighting an amateur. There's a reason amateur bouts are so different to a professional, and there's reasons why there's great amateur fighters, and some of them stay amateurs, some of them stay as very, very good Olympians, and some of them make the move to the professionals and can't bust it, because it's a very different sport. And I saw a Callum Peters that tried to fight an amateur 3-round fight the way he has fought his professional bouts, and unfortunately for him it didn't work. But I think he is someone that Australia can look at as a top fighter in the years to come if he continues to progress. I'd like for him to decide if he's going to be an amateur or if he's going to be a professional. If he's going to be professional, he's had 4 fights. I think all 4 knockouts have come in the first round. If this is the case and these are the fights he's in, it doesn't matter as long as you're fighting 4-5 times a year. As you start getting tougher and tougher opponents, that'll narrow down to 3 times a year, 2 times a year when you're really starting to hit that elite level. But right now, I just want to see Callum Peters. Every time No Limit have an event, I want to see your name on the bill. I want to see you getting better and better opponents because, like I said, I do think at 22 years of age, what he did as an amateur and now what he's doing as a professional, he can go leaps and bounds through the ranks. And at middleweight, he's a very good size middleweighter because I actually think there's room there to look at going to super middleweight. He's spoken about even going up to light heavyweight. That's a building thing. That is a building thing. Do what you can at middleweight. Get as many fights as you can. If you can't get middleweight fights, take them at super middleweight. You're going to be comfortable there, but I would hone your time in at fighting at middleweight. Sam Goodman, he's taking on Tyler Blizzard. Sam Goodman, very, very good fight against Nick Ball. I think lots of people gave him not much chance. Lots of people were heavily backing Nick Ball. I thought Sam Goodman, for his first fight of that magnitude overseas in Riyadh against a very, very, very elite fighter in Nick Ball, he showed himself very well. The scorecards were 113, 115, 110, 118, 111, 117, which I don't think reflect the fight, but you're fighting Nick Ball. he's going to get the favoritism. Obviously, he is the champ. You have to go out there and you have to make a statement. You have to beat him. And unfortunately for Sam Goodman, he wasn't able to do that. But I think he will gain a lot of experience from that fight. And he's taking on someone in Tyler Blizzard who, at 27 years of age, hasn't got the experience that now Sam Goodman. Sam Goodman, 20 wins, 8 knockouts, that one loss to Nick Ball, compared to Tyler Blizzard at 27 years of age, 10 wins, 0 losses, 0 draws. Tyler Blizzard has been sort of domestically successful, but it's now taking on someone that has had success domestically. He's had success against international opponents. He hasn't had the success internationally yet, but what you gain from experience and know-how of going to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, fighting for a world title against Nick Ball, I think with all those factors combined, you would back Sam Goodman to get it over Tyler Blizzard. Though Tyler Blizzard a very, very good fighter, I think Sam Goodman has just got too much experience, too much know-how, and like I said, he is a very good fighter. Not many people have gone the distance and fought as well as Sam Goodman did against Nick Ball. I mean, we talk about some of the people that have done well against Nick Ball. You're looking at people like Ray Ford. So Sam Goodman is the top echelon, and to think he's a super bantamweighter and he fought Nick Ball at featherweight, another advantage to Nick Ball. And Sam Goodman, like I said, didn't get the result, but I think he'll gain a lot of experience. Now, let's talk about the big one. Tszyu taking on Anthony Velasquez. Let's talk about Anthony Velasquez first, someone that I personally don't know much about. I'm sure most of you don't know much about. This morning I did watch a few of his fights, watched some of his highlights, looked into his resume and everything about him, but we will break the fight down as it gets closer. But just early doors, Anthony Velasquez from America. He's 29 years of age, 18 wins, 15 knockouts, 0 losses, 1 draw. He started his career off at welterweight, big welterweight. If you watch his fights at welterweight, he's huge. But made his move up to super welterweight, but he's also fought as high as middleweight. I even saw in his resume he fought someone, he weighed 162 and he was fighting someone at 172. So he's a very capable fighter fighting at high weights, and at super welterweight, his size and reach will match basically perfectly with Tszyu. Tszyu, he's 5'9", 70-inch reach. Anthony Velasquez, a little bit taller, 5'10", but 70-inch reach. So I think these two molds will look very, very, very similar in the ring. You'd probably back Anthony Velasquez to be the slightly bigger fighter though. Saying that, Tszyu's just done 20 odd rounds with Sebastian Fundora. It doesn't get much bigger than that at super welterweight. So for Tszyu, the size thing, Anthony Velasquez will be no different for Tszyu. Anthony Velasquez's career though, we'll talk about that. 18 wins and 1 draw. His 1 draw came by split decision a few years ago, but it's definitely a stat-padded resume. I mean, his last fight would have been his 19th fight. To go into your 19th fight against a 40-year-old Terry Chatwood that's got 12 wins, 3 losses, and 1 draw professionally, and Terry Chatwood went into that Velasquez fight off back-to-back stoppage losses, a KO and a retirement. So for me, I don't rate Anthony Velasquez very highly from what I've seen and what I've seen on paper. His fights, yeah, he's good, but like when you watch him at welterweight, he's so big and his opponent isn't great that it's quite easy work for Anthony Velasquez. So this fight here is a major step up for him. It'll be his first fight overseas. It'll be against a former world champion. That is a massive, massive step up. And I don't see a way in which Velasquez really goes in on this fight anywhere near a close sort of favourite. I'm talking Tszyu should be going into this like $1.30 and Velasquez should be going in there $7 or $8. That's how widely spread I think this draw is. I think it's very, very favourable to Tszyu. There's a reason that it's very favourable to Tszyu, but for Anthony Velasquez, it's a bit cliche. Look, he's coming all the way from America here. He's not going to come here to lose. He's going to come and try and fight, but ultimately, I don't think he'll have the experience or the know-how or the technique to be able to beat Tszyu. Let's talk about Tszyu now, because the evolution of Tszyu is almost complete. This will be his first fight since making all these grand changes within his career. At 31 years of age, 25 wins, 18 knockouts, 3 losses, 2 coming by way of knockout and 0 draws, former world champion. He's had to change his whole entire lifestyle, his whole entire boxing, camps, everything about him and his boxing life has changed in the past few months since we saw him in July against Sebastian Fundora. New trainer, Dr. Pedro Diaz. New training camp in Miami. A new name even. He's now the Phoenix, not the Soul Taker. Obviously the Phoenix rising from the ashes. The rebuild for Tszyu. So, let's talk about Tszyu's last fight against Sebastian Fundora. A fight that I thought Tszyu was going to be able to win following his win against Joey Spencer didn't show us much, but it showed us a little bit about the mindset of Tszyu and hopefully some of the changes we were going to see against Sebastian Fundora. But ultimately, what I think that Sebastian Fundora loss came down to was the tactics. I think the tactics that were set and the game plan set before Tszyu by his team and his training camp were completely wrong. And when you have already spent 12 rounds in there with Sebastian Fundora, there is millions and millions of minutes of footage that you can watch Sebastian Fundora online. To be honest, I think I could have set forth a better game plan than what they sent Tszyu in there with. And I think following a disappointing 18 months with losses to Sebastian Fundora twice, the Bakram Mortazaliev loss that was horrendous, the thought to change his team, his main coach, his training location and everything, I thought was a brilliant decision by Tszyu, and a tough one because we know Tszyu loved his team. We know he grew up with these people. These people have been like family to Tszyu, but unfortunately, it is professional boxing. You got to separate personal life and business, and this has to be a business decision, and that's what it was for Tszyu, a business decision, and I think it's the right decision. If you don't know who Dr. Pedro Diaz is or what he does, I have actually got a full video that I'll put in the link, I'll put in the description to check that out if you want to hear about him. But Dr. Pedro Diaz, a very accomplished trainer, both amateur and professional. He's had over 20 world titles professionally, won numerous gold medals through the Cuban national team, and he was part of the training of the Cuban national team through 5 Olympics. So a big name in boxing, and Tszyu, under the helm of him, he's been training with him for 1 or 2 months. By the time this fight comes out, he's probably been with him for 3 months. He did spend some time, Tszyu, going around America. We saw him with people like David Benavidez. We saw him in Big Bear in California. A very big place for boxing. Brutal training camps up there. Spent some time in there, in and around coaches and trainers and people there. And Tszyu's eventually landed in Miami with Dr. Pedro Diaz, who will be training him. And like I said, after a disappointing 18 months, I think it is a brilliant decision to bring him in. He's really dedicated his time here because it is a big decision for him to step away from his family for his training camps and go over to Miami and really just dive in head first. Sort of what you'd expect a fighter to do when they're rebuilding their career or on the rise up. You know, just hard work, day in, day out, sacrificing. Something that I think Tszyu maybe got a little bit too comfortable with training at Rockdale. He was in and around his family. Everything was a bit too cozy, and this here is far from cozy. And I think all of that ultimately will benefit Tszyu. In terms of this fight, the experience that Tszyu has and the fights that he's been in, as well as his new coach, if all set out correctly, this fight should be quite easy work for Tszyu, and it should mark the start of his rebuild to a world title. Tszyu is in possibly the hardest division in boxing right now, and that is something that people need to understand. If you are a casual boxing fan in Australia and you just sort of back Tszyu, you know, his last 18 months has been very disappointing, and I have said that multiple times because I think he could have done far better against Fundora. I think the game plan against Fundora and Bakram were very poor and mismanaged. Mismanaged is the word. His new team, his new mentors, everything about this needs to change for Tszyu. And when you look at his division now, the people that he's going to have to go through, we're talking Jeroen Boutsenis, we're talking Virgil Ortiz, we're talking still Sebastian Vendoris, still talking Bakram Mortadzaliev, even names like Israel Madrimov, a fight that I think Tim Tszyu can sort of aim for and sort of rebuild off. None of these are easy fights. None of them are easy fights. They're all exceptionally, exceptionally difficult. And Tim Tszyu going to have to weather storms and go through different phases of this evolution to get back to whether it's World Championship, Interim World Championship, any sort of level of high authority within the super welterweight division, you have to go through some big, big names. And Tim Tszyu needs to make sure that everything is on point, because what we saw him do in that fight against Bakram, the battering he took against Bakram, the retirement against Sebastian Fundora, was a bad look. And I think lots of that reflected poorly on him and his training camp. That's all changed. And we're going to see that December 17th at the ICC Sydney. Tim Tszyu versus Anthony Velasquez, Sam Goodman versus Tyler Blizzard. A stacked card. If you're new to the channel, please do consider subscribing, like this video, leave a comment, let us know what you guys think of these fights, of these fighters, what you think of Tim Tszyu's return to the ring. And I'm out of here, guys. See ya!